Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, listeners, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to the 27th edition of the Issues Room. The Issues Room is an alternative media platform where we broadcast or podcast, if you want to put it that way, issues trending in Liberia, Africa, and the Black diaspora. This evening, we're back here again, December 10th, 2021. As I said, the year is moving, so fast, and sooner or later we'll be celebrating Christmas and New Year. By the way, we want to welcome you to this broadcast. As I said, we're going to be presenting the issues of the coronavirus and its continued mutations as it remains a plague in our world. As you and I know, there have been a lot of discussions around the variants. There was one called the Delta, and recently we have the Omicron, a new one that's just come about and is now raging. In fact, mainly in South Africa. So we say welcome wherever you are. Our broadcast is on Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time and midnight. What we call Liberian time or the GMT time zone. My name is Volcano Shelton, and let me bring in my colleague, Moses Sandy, out there in Delaware. Good evening, Moses. Welcome to the 27th edition of the Issues Room. We're back here again, my brother.
Absolutely, we are. And Volcano, time flies, man. Just a few months ago, and now we're talking about the 27th edition of the Issues Room. So it's pleasing to be back with another interesting discussion with a career public health specialist, Tolbert Nyenswah.
Well, there is a controversy now when you pronounce this guy's name. Accordingly, his name is Tolbert. A
Yes,
lot of people
Tolbert.
are thinking he's Tobo.
No, it's Tolbert.
So he actually gonna make that clarification tonight,
Okay.
because there's a tendency for people to mispronounce people's name and then to
Yeah.
go by that and believe that that's the name. My name is Volcano, but people call me all kinds of way. They got it Liberian accent to Volcano. And people who I expect to be educated, though,
Yeah, and they all call
who
you
should know what a
Volcano, right?
volcano is,
Yeah.
and they're calling me anything they feel like calling me. So, but that's what it is. Again, people who not kind of used to the Queen's language and learn it over time will try to pick up on that. But we want to welcome all of our viewers. If you're out there this evening joining our broadcast, please come in the chat room and tell us you're here. It's important for us to know that you're here so you can, gain some degree of recognition. Share the link, share the page for us, and promote the platform. We are the alternative, and all we do here is to bring the issues, discuss the issues. We found, people who are professionals in their field, particularly as it pertains to the topic of discussions. So again, as I said, this evening we'll be discussing the virus. Moses, we have our segment called Trending Issues in the News. And so I will go straight to trending issues in the news while our guests, get set to be brought in. But quickly, let me go over some quick summary of some of the stories that are trending. Welcome, Lebor Tengbe. It's a pleasure having you all the way from Canada. The Omicron variant has exponentially spread in South Africa in a short time, and now experts are warning that widespread vaccine hesitancy and the lack of basic medical supplies in the region may lead to an explosive outbreak of new cases. In just 2 weeks, the number of new COVID cases in South Africa has surged more than 1,600%, according to an ABC News analysis of data from the National Institute of Communicable Disease. The increase coincides with the discovery of the Omicron, a variant in South Africa, and comes as countries around the world institute protective measures against the new strain. Omicron now accounts for the vast majority of new cases in South Africa and has reached at least 10 other African countries and the French territory of reunion. South Africa's Gauteng province, home of the major city of Johannesburg, has become the epicenter where cases are roughly 7 times higher than the nation's other provinces, according to government data. On the observation of International Anti Corruption Day, the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia dropped a bombshell on the Liberian Senator Prince Johnson, labeling him as a corrupt official, hugely benefiting from government funds through a pay for play scheme with government ministries. As part of the scheme, according to the U.S. government, those upon receiving funding from the government of Liberia, the involved government and ministries organizations launder a portion of the funding for return to the involved participants. The pay for play funding scheme involves millions of US dollars. Additionally, Johnson receives an undeserved salary from the government of Liberia as salaried intelligence source, though he does not provide any form of intelligence reporting to the government. According to the Americans, Johnson is reportedly being paid in order to maintain domestic stability. The Nima County Kingmaker is also listed to have reportedly sold votes in multiple elections in exchange for money. Mr. Johnson is known to be a major opposition to the establishment of War and Economic Crimes Court in Liberia and a former chairman of the Senate Committee on National Security, Defense, Intelligence, and Veteran Affairs. He was forced to resign the post after the U.S. Embassy expressed disappointment in the Liberian Senate for his preferment. When Senator Johnson's sanction was being disclosed by the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia, President Weah was addressing world leaders virtually, attending the Summit on Democracy hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden on December 9th, 2021. In his speech, President Weah called for the strengthening of democracy and protecting the fight against corruption. In this regard, he said, "My government commits to fighting corruption at the highest level. We will seek legislative approval to amend the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission Act to grant the institution direct prosecutorial powers." He also announced the creation of a dedicated court for the prosecution and conviction of police, or rather public officials, and other individuals and institutions engaged in corrupt practices and financial offenses. And finally, in the wake of multiple suspensions and internal wrangling within opposition Liberty Party, the suspended Vice Chairman for Political Affairs, Senator Darius Dillon, has expressed deepest regrets over his support accorded Musa's ability to excel to the chairmanship of the party, with a vow to lead a campaign to ensure the removal of his one-time best friend who supported him during the senatorial elections in 2020. The Liberty Party, which was once considered a party of integrity in Liberia, received a barrage of criticism and condemnations minutes after the election of Bility as the new chair of the party. Critics made specific reference to the ban placed on Bility at the time he served as executive committee member of the Confederation of African Football, CAF, and accusations linking him to squandering funds rather intended for the resettlement of scores of citizens in Nima County. Moses?
New York, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she wants to question former U.S. President Donald Trump of as part of the state's civil fraud investigation of his namesake business. According to the Washington Post, a prominent US based newspaper, she spoke on Thursday of this week. Attorney General James says she wants the former president to sit for a deposition hearing on January 17, 2022. She wants to know whether the Trump organization manipulated the valuation of its real estate properties. Back to you, Volcano.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the Issues Room. Tony and Brooks, Thomas Awaji, we missed you. I believe Thomas was celebrating his birthday, and so he was enjoying himself. Well, he's finally back. Um, so it's good to have you, TA. Welcome to the Issues Room. Well, this evening, again, we have uh,
Better.
Councillor Thomas Nyenswah, LLB MP-ish, a senior research associate, Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, Department of International Health. He's an internationally recognized legal scholar and a global public health expert who specializes in public health emergencies preparedness and response, advising on incident management system functionalities. Tolbert has been engaged with several public health emergencies, including Ebola, Lassa fever, Zika meningitis, and currently the COVID 19 response. He also has 9 years fighting endemic malaria. Since the pandemic, some of the major contributions he made to the COVID 19 response include the development of a COVID 19 contact tracing course that has over 700,000 enrollment and certification. In addition, there's an over 50 million viewers COVID 19 contact tracing course, crowdsourcing surveillance course at Harvard University, building state capacity. Talbot appeared on several webinars advising high level political and technical global leaders. The CGD, Carey Business School, Cornell University, Johns Hopkins University faculty real time COVID 19 response. Talbot has been interviewed by African, North African, Asian, European, and South American media. Few samples are in the Washington Post, The Hill, Business Insider, Bloomberg, US Today, NPR Radio, BBC, Business Insider, Voice of America News, World Economic Forum, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Voice of America Africa, the New Yorker, STAT, which is Stat, and Politico, etc. Tolbos has a current research that focuses on Ebola vaccines, detection of persistent Ebola virus in survivors, and transmission dynamics for emerging infectious diseases, especially using One Health approach. He was named winner of the Bloomberg Hopkins Emerging Leader Award in 2016 in honor of Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health centennial. Mr. Nyenswah has also been recognized as a public health leader, both at home and internationally, as a leader in Liberia's successful response to the 2014 Ebola outbreak. He's made an enormous impact on public health in disease control programming in West Africa. He's a lawyer by training, coupled with his work in public health leadership role with the National Malaria Control Program in Liberia, a program that helped to reduce the malaria prevalence from 66% um, in 2005 to 28% in 2011. Tolbert became Assistant Minister of Health and Deputy Chief Medical Officer for Prevention in 2012 through 2015, and Deputy Minister of Health for Disease Surveillance and Epidemic Control 2015-2017. Ladies and gentlemen, our viewers out there, we say welcome to the Issues Room, Mr. Tolbert Nyenswah. Let's get it straight. People say it's Toba, Torbor, or is Tolbert?
It's Tolbert.
So
Tolbert.
I don't even know where they came from calling you Toba. you know, like some people are getting vexed with me.
From birth,
Yeah.
Like they don't want to name you.
from birth, my father named me Tolbert
Okay.
on behalf of in name of President William R. Tolbert, the president of Liberia. He used to be a good friend of my father.
Yeah, so
Ah,
thanks for making that clarification, Tolbert. Because a lot of people, because your last name Yinswa is associated with crew and Toba is associated with crew, I'm sure. So
Yeah,
They just merged the two and have been,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, I've been in conversation with people who are educated and who should know you personally, calling you Tobo.
And the
Yeah.
reason is the crew trap also have TORBUR. And coming from
Oh,
that background, people would think that, from his ethnicity, he's Tolbert, and I'm
Tolbert.
Tolbert. Actually, I'm Tolbert.
Okay.
Thanks for that clarification. So it's gone to the world, please. The man name is Tolbert,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
Tobo. Okay. Moses.
Yeah. Uh, Mr. Nyenswah, welcome to the Issues Room. We are happy to have you. A career public health specialist. We'll be looking at COVID-19, the coming in of the Omicron variant. And so we'll be discussing that in detail, but we just want to provide some statistics. And you, as a specialist, you will be able to add on to that. And Volcano will kick off the discussion. So, as I speak to you right now, research shows that in the United States, 19 states have been affected by the Omicron variant. And as a result of that, in the state of California and other states, hospitals are now running out of beds. So it seems that the cases are spreading. In the United States, the COVID stats as of today's date is 123,484.
A million. That's a million.
It's 123 million?
Yeah.
And we're talking about the new cases.
Oh, the new cases. All right.
Yeah, the new cases.
Okay, the
The
Omicron.
new cases, the new cases in the United States
Yeah. Okay.
is 123,484.
So Moses
In terms
quickly.
of death toll, yeah.
Moses quickly. So that means just in this space of 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks.
Mhm. That's what training right now. And
Coincidentally, you remember, well, I think 2 weeks away when they said the first case was in California.
mhm. So right now the death in terms of our death toll, we have 1,294 persons that have died. COVID globally, global report as of today's date, it says, in terms of our new cases, global cases, new cases is 724,000 globally. That's the number of cases we have in the world. In terms of our death toll, the statistics shows 8,700. And I would like to pause there and come back to you, Volcano, and we can start with Tolbert with his expertise as we look at these cases, the prevention methods, and the list goes on.
So Tobo, you currently serve with Johns Hopkins University. Am I right?
Yes.
Good. So what is situations like now at Johns Hopkins and their purview and outlook on this virus, and then all of the variants are coming about? What are they doing about it as a university that deals with situation like this?
First of all, thank you, gentlemen, Volcano and Moses, for having me on your show. I know this is a very, very important show. You do a great job, the both of you. I follow you very, very since you established your podcast, and the show has been one of the great show I love to watch. I follow you guys very, very closely, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for inviting me on, and thanks to your audience, your watching, people screening and people listening to us. Thanks for your time. It is indeed a privilege to be on. One thing that I learned very well, Moses and Volcano, is that even when I was leading the Ebola response in Liberia, A community radio in Cape Mount will call me on the telephone, and EFBC will also call me, and the BBC will call me, and I will find time to speak with whatsoever media entity that called me. Because even if it is one or two persons that are listening, it means a lot. The education that people get from, especially during either an epidemic or an endemic or pandemic, you must provide information to the public. It helps a lot. Uh, for disclaimer, I don't speak for the John Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. They have their whole external communication team. In fact, before I appear on international and even local media, I have to clear it with them on my statements and all of that. So our conversation tonight will be based on my expertise as an individual and now on behalf of the university, on behalf, not on behalf of the U.S. government, because I also have an association with the federal government of the United States. So I'm speaking on behalf of Tolbert Nyenswah as that person with knowledge of public health. So the Bloomberg School of Public Health, one of the things that we do is, if you check all of the most, if not all of the news agencies, governments, policy makers in the world, go on our website. We have, when the outbreak started, our engineering team, one thing they did was to create a COVID-19 tracker. So across the world, every country, we have statistics on what is going on with COVID-19. So if you want information, just go on the John Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health website, and you will get up-to-date, real-time information that is quoted by CNN, Fox News, and all of the news against you can think about. Because if you know the information and you know what's taking place granularly, then you can put measures in place that can deal with crisis and outbreak. So that's one of the things we invested in as a university. The second thing was, when the outbreak started, contact tracing was something that people, were not used to. So the outbreak was spreading on, at an exponential rate, and people in communities did not know how to track it. So the Bloomberg philanthropist, the Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York, three times mayor of New York, asked the Johns Hopkins University whether we could develop a contact tracing course that could be used in the world. Especially, we're developing it for the state of New York because that's where he based and that's where his organization is. But when we got through that course, it was so unique to the extent that we have 15 million people that enrolled in the course and got certificate. And all US 50 states are using our course right now. And we won an award for that. So contact tracing has become more easier now. And over 15 languages in the world, Chinese, you can think about Indians, adopted a course that is being used right now for contact tracing globally. So if you ask me, what is the university? There are other research that are going on with testing, with vaccines and all of that. Our team, people are on the field across the world. We have an Indian institute I'm part of. When the Delta variant, originated for India, our team went in there to curb and subdue the situation that was happening in India. Those are a few of the things that we do.
So since the Omicron came, anything new that you guys doing?
Oh yes, we're working with the NIH, the National Institute of Health, other scientists, universities, academics, the vaccine manufacturers, Pfizer and Moderna, have been seen to know whether or not the vaccines are effective against the new Omicron variants that are being detected in South Africa. And so a lot of work being going on with that to see whether or not there will be new vaccine that will be needed to combat the coronavirus, because when viruses do mutate, they may invade the immune system, and therapeutics or vaccines that you may have created may be less efficacious against the disease. And so what they do is to take samples, take them to the lab, and check against the vaccines that have been produced. So that work has been going on. Folks in Hopkins, NIH have been working with the drug company to see how we can quickly detect those kind of things and inform the population about what goes. But for now, the science is that the vaccines that are available, whether it's Pfizer, whether it's Moderna, whether it's J&J, especially the FDA approved vaccines, are still efficacious and effective against the Omicron virus variant that we're looking at right now.
So, October, the struggle against COVID started 18 months ago. And some critics are of the view that things are actually getting worse than improving. As a specialist, what would you say?
What worries me most, Moses, it's a great question. Thank you very much for asking that.
Hmm.
What worries me most is the inequitable, uneven distribution of vaccines and other things that we have right now. Now, the science is that once the immunization rate, the vaccines rate, are low in the population, and there's a continuing spread of virus in there, you will have dangerous variants and mutations that will occur. So, clear example is what's happening in Africa right now, in South Africa. Typical example is what happened in India with the Delta variant. So our call out there to high income countries and rich countries, as we may call them, and most of them in the global north, United States, Europe, and other of these countries, Israel, are having the resources to make sure that we put these resources into developing countries. Because the world is not saved if we can vaccinate all of the people here and reach herd immunity, as we call it in public health, in the United States. And people in Africa are only having 6.6% of their population vaccinated, about 1.3 billion, about 1.3 billion people, only 6 point something percent of the population are African. They seem in Southeast Asia, they seem in other WHO regions. So our call is, please, you vaccinating your population at a very high speed. What happened to these populations? There where we will see the variants coming from to affect the rest of the world. So that's what worries most of us so much, that we push in equitable distribution of vaccines. But to come to your point, if you compare the mortality, the deaths of people from the 2020 level to 2021, we have exceeded the number of people that died from the virus in 2021 than in 2020. That shows that the virus is still unabated. We still have more work to do to stop it. But the good news is we have the tools, and the number one effective tool are vaccines. This is where we're calling on people to have their jobs and take their vaccines in their arm, because that's how we can stop this outbreak. Evidence has shown that about 99% of the people that are infected, especially in countries like the United States, are the unvaccinated. Sadly, the US is politicizing, there are Republican states,
Mhm.
cities that don't want to be vaccinated. There are Democratic people who are getting the vaccine. So we need to do the community engagement. That's important.
Okay.
Let me come in quick, Moses. So,
Yeah,
what do
sure.
you think the booster would do? Because you just said here that to combat the virus, the vaccine is the number one, fighter. And a lot of people, since I took two shots in January, or rather February, between January and February, I just took the booster about on November 30th. Actually, let me
I
be
took
quick.
mine yesterday.
Yeah.
I took mine yesterday.
Okay.
Okay.
So, do you think that kind of reinvigorated to ward off the Omicron if I were in the presence of someone who was infected. Since you said the vaccine is the way around it, because
You,
um,
you did the right thing. The first thing I will clarify before I even go to where we are is the first point I made. You have protection from the two, the fully vaccinated. When you have two doses of the vaccine, that's what we call you are fully vaccinated. So you were protected already, my brother, and those who have taken the vaccine. We have the luxury right now, those who find ourselves in developed countries like the United States that have approved. The US CDC have approved, FDA has approved that we should have our third dose, which is the booster dose. It increases and add to your chances of being more immune from the disease. And so that's a good thing to do. If you have the opportunity to take your booster, that's fine. But if I do that, then I also reflect with my mind of public health. I'm taking a third dose. What happened to people in South Africa? What happened to people in Liberia? What happened to people across the world that have not even had the chance to get one shot here in their arms? But for now, we cannot say for sure 100% that the Omicron variant can invade the immune system that we have from the previous vaccines we've taken. And so that investigation is going on right now. Once we get to know, trust me, the information will get out there. But Pfizer, one of the manufacturer of the vaccines, is running with it that if you have the third dose, that will be efficacious. But where we should get our information from is from either the US CDC or FDA or the NIH or WHO, because some of the manufacturers, they have their own interests.
But look, Toba, you spoke about equitable distribution of vaccine, and there are people who are of the view that hey, people should shoulder their own responsibilities, and I'm making reference to third world countries, especially for countries in Africa. What can we or what can the world do to ensure that we have equitable distribution of our vaccine to poor countries? What need to be done?
I think thank you, it's a great question. The WHO
Yeah.
created a facility called a COVAX facility. They created that to distribute 2 billion doses of vaccine to the rest of the developing world, low and middle income countries, like you described rightly, Moses. And
Carlos, just to interrupt you, there's something scuffling under your hand every
okay,
time. Yeah, it makes
okay,
okay.
Yeah.
thank you. I can take care of that.
All
Yeah.
So
right.
Go
so
ahead.
so basically, the WHO created this facility, and it has done well to push some of the COVID vaccine that we want to be distributed there, but it's not enough. And this is where the G20 nations and the G7 nations they met, and the United States government have been leading the charge. They have been the highest donation. They have made the highest donation to the COVID facility through WHO. Some of those contain the J&J vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine that went to India. Some went to Liberia, other countries. The Africa CDC on the African continent have also been making efforts, but it's not enough. It's really not enough. We the developed world need to move very quickly to get vaccines in the developing world. That's how we end the outbreak. Moses. We have evidence of smallpox being eradicated in the world because of vaccination. Measles is non existent in other areas, though there are some emerging and importation of measles in other countries. But contrary, the United States eliminated measles. Liberia done a great job when the vaccination program was strong in the country. We got rid of polio. Polio is almost at the verge of being eradicated in the world because of vaccine. Only two countries reporting polio right now. That's Pakistan and Afghanistan. The rest of the world, it wasn't war in Afghanistan, we would have eradicated polio in the world by now. So the only way we can get out of this thing is by vaccinating the rest of the population, at least 70% of the population of the world.
So let me come in quick and look at what South Africa's president said. He was very stern with the international community that they have not really had Black Africa, to the heart of all of this. And he thinks that it is now time that vaccines be made for Africans and must be made for Africans. So people like you, Talbot, who are experts, and they're African scientists around the world who've done extremely well. Uh, is there a thought to come together to see what you can do from your end, but also will work along with the global community to devise some kind of vaccine that would be common to the African man? Because the reason I'm asking this question is the myth, and we'll come to some of the myth. People are still skeptical about taking the vaccines. We have a superstar NBA player in Kyrie Irving who has vehemently refused to take the vaccine to the point it's costing him millions of dollars for not playing for the New York Knicks. And he has said he's not taking the vaccine. So imagine if that guy, who's supposed to be a trendsetter, who would take the vaccine, and people are looking up to him. So people in Africa say, but if that man who is a millionaire not taking the vaccine and he losing money, why should I take the vaccine? But I would take something that I believe my own African scientists, came together and produced. What do you think about that?
So thank you for kind of, vaccine hesitancy, as we call it,
Yeah.
is a big issue. It is big. People are out of questioning the efficacy and effectiveness of vaccines, number one, and misinformation and disinformation about the vaccine on social media and other channels are leading the cause of people not taking the vaccine. I had the opportunity to speak with people in Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand. Their parliament came together, and India. They came together and said, "We want somebody with experience to come and speak to our parliament because they go in their communities. Like we have our legislators from districts, to come and speak with us to see how we can counteract or counter myth and vaccine rumors and all of these things." So most of the things happening in the United States across the world from our experience on other countries and people that we speak with. But to counteract that is engaging the community. We have to do one-on-one information sharing using multiple communication channel. Some of that we're doing right now tonight. Your show is brilliantly, those who will follow it will get some information from here on the account of Africans developing their own vaccines. I don't want to put it that way. It sounds a little bit to say let's have African vaccines and have white man vaccines
But,
or European
but
vaccines.
people are thinking that way because they say, oh, you know what they did? They made a good one for themselves, and they bring it in one that's supposed to make us cripple. You hear people
the,
talk these
the
things.
Right,
subs
I
the,
hear
Yeah,
them.
the
yeah.
substandard one.
So
That,
let's make
that's part of the myth.
let's make the African vaccine so that it can create some degree of believability
Right,
in its
Yeah.
efficacy.
right. That's part of the myth. The
Mhm.
vaccines that are being produced, there is no one vaccine being produced for the white man, and there is no vaccine being produced for the black man. The
Okay.
AstraZeneca vaccine that is sent to Africa predominantly is being used in the UK. It's being used and produced in India. The Europeans are using it. The competition it is, and Volcano, we are not there yet where the competition countries can develop their own vaccines. When the issue of coronavirus came in, when the United States started developing their vaccines, the European went on and started developing theirs. The Indian created a site. The Indian Institute, Syrian Indian Institute, created a site, and they started producing and packaging their own vaccines. The Cubans did there, the Japanese, the Russians. Africa, we don't have the facilities. So when His Excellency Ramaphosa tried to say that we need to, I know the Africa CDC, the WHO African region has been working very, very hard to create some site. Rwanda is one of the areas that it targeted. Senegal is another site that was targeted to produce. First of all, to start, you know, packaging first, get it there, find a site, and start packaging and producing on the continent. South Africa, Rwanda, Senegal are doing a great job to get to that level. But for us to have the facilities, have the institutions to do that require, number one, the resources. Money needs to be there. Number two, we need to have the trained manpower that can have the knowledge to do that, the political will to do it. I have an experience where when Ebola struck in Liberia, we wanted therapeutics, that's treatment. We wanted vaccines. We didn't have anything at all to fight with when Ebola started. We asked the United States National Institute of Health. They went to Liberia and we were able to set up a site in Liberia to produce, in Liberia, Guinea, to produce the first Ebola vaccine. And we saw what went on. The US dollars, the US government spent, millions and millions of dollars to get scientists into Liberia to work with our scientists to produce those vaccines. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars to do that.
Okay.
At JFK, we remodel some of the floors at JFK. We remodel Redemption Hospital, Tapeta, not Tapeta, but McGibby, C.H. Rennie Hospital, Duporo Hospital, to create research sites to do that. So it requires money. And African government, they are already computing priorities. The little money they have, they won't spend it on all the other things, and research is not a priority for our continent. So it will take time. In the meantime, we have to ask the rest of the global north to provide for us.
So, Ottawa, if I can piggyback on that, from what I'm hearing, it seems to suggest that the South African president, his preposition seems to be, out of touch with reality. All these economic challenges you spoke about, the political will, don't you think he was just out of touch with reality?
I wouldn't describe it that way. The reason is that South Africa is an upper income country right now,
Hmm.
or middle income, as we may call it. Their health system is one of the sophisticated one we have on the continent. They have other vaccines that have been produced in South Africa, in Senegal Institute Pasteur, and Ghana is coming online with other vaccines. But let me tell you the news. Africa only produces 1% of the vaccines that we use on our continent. You talk about
Wow.
measles, you talk about polio vaccine, you talk about hepatitis vaccine. All of the vaccine in our expanded program of immunizations, only 1% is produced on the continent. 99.9% is coming from outside of the continent. So when I say we are not there yet, that's kind of the statistics that we are looking at, that we're not there yet. But starting it is important. So when the AU, under the leadership of the African Union and the Africa CDC, that we established immediately after the Ebola crisis, we said Africa needed their own, scientific public health institution to deal with some of these issues we're talking about. So with the leadership of the Africa CDC, some of these things are falling in line to get, vaccines, research on the continent and all of that. And the leadership of the African Union is moving aggressively, especially on the heel of the COVID-19 and what happened to Ebola, the global health security people. 4 weeks ago, the Francis Collins, who's the director of the National Institute of Health, we had a symposium with the Africa CDC and some of these things. There were commitment from the US to support the manufacturing of vaccines and other therapeutic on the continent.
Thank
Okay.
you. If you just
Mhm.
joined us, welcome to the Issues Room. We are at the intermission. This evening is the 27th edition. We're featuring Mr. Tolbert Nyenswah, a public health expert who has worked around the world in the area of public health. And we're discussing the coronavirus, particularly with the addition of the Omicron. Uh, and this is now taking root in the world. This virus seems to be mutating, and every time we're trying to curb one variant, a new one comes about, and the discussion is centered around that. If you're joining us, we say please share the link. We want to quickly recognize Jake Manzo Payson. He says that he's watching from Louisville, and you are his former boss, Mr. Yinswai, the Minister of Health. Emmanuel Jackson, we say welcome to the show. Welcome, John Yomi, one of our contributors, Steve Quay and Tony Brooks and Lebor Tengbe. Let me just give you a straightforward question. With all of the vaccines now that you named, which vaccine is the best? I'm Pfizer. And people say, don't take Moderna, don't take Johnson and Johnson, don't
Yeah.
take AstraZeneca. Which vaccine is the best? Now, and this, not to put you on the spot, Tolbert, but we got generic brand.
I think
And we
just me,
got,
I will tell you.
you want CVS or you want the real thing. So which vaccine is the best? I'm Pfizer.
Moses, you who?
I'm Pfizer as well.
Okay.
Okay. Any
So the,
vaccines
so the
that have
issues room
been
is Pfizer.
all the vaccines
And the reason why I ask this question, a lot of people are concerned. A lot of
Yeah.
people, they're confused. People say, oh, this one would do this one, because there's a wait time for, so just please clear the air tonight.
now all of the vaccines that have been approved by FDA in the United States, there are three. There are other vaccines that the World Health Organization have also approved. WHO and other governments like UK. I will go for vaccines that have been approved by the WHO and
Okay.
vaccines that are being approved by the US FDA. And all of the vaccines that people are taking right now, they all met that criteria. Vaccines
So,
go
so
through,
if a vaccine is approved by the World Health Organization, does that mean the FDA here will approve it?
no, not necessarily.
Okay.
For
Okay.
example, the World Health Organization covers all the countries in the world. So if Chinese produce vaccine, they will go through
Because that's the
the
one I'm scared of.
they will go through the GM, the good manufacturing practices,
Okay.
and WHO will give what we call pre-qualification of those drugs and qualify it.
Okay.
So if you check on the WHO website and they tell you WHOs have pre-qualified these vaccines, then they are safe for you to take them because it goes through the same rigorous processes that the US FDA might have put in. Because, mind you, there are Americans and other countries, Africans, and people around the world that work for the WHO. So they will go through rigorous processes to do that. But mind you, the United States might not take vaccines from other countries into the US. They will depend on what their FDA and other manufacturers produce and that they are using in the United States. So we
Okay.
have three that are produced in the United States that we're using right now that you guys know, Pfizer, McDonough, and the J&J.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter between the three of them which one you take.
Okay.
Across the world also, there are other vaccines that we know that the Chinese, AstraZeneca and others that they have produced and WHO pre-qualify. Those vaccines are also good for you to take. So at this stage, I wouldn't put premium out of the vaccines that this is the one that qualify for you to take or not to take. For me, they are good once they are approved by the WHO and the CDC. And let me tell
Do
you
they
one.
all come with the same ingredients?
Yes, no, no.
Okay.
There are some that they use the mRNA to produce the messenger RNA to produce that teaches your body how to respond and teaches your body how to respond to the disease. I don't want to go into all the medical and technical jargons here. But
Yeah.
and then they're the one that went through the normal process. That's the J and J one that went through all of the other normal clinical processes. That is not the mRNA vaccines. So, but they are all still okay. Uh, the J and J passed 70% when it comes to efficacy. Uh, the Pfizer pass about 95% when it comes to efficacy, but
Woohoo!
it doesn't mean that they
that's,
don't
that's the
prevent.
noise. That's the noise the graduates make. Woohoo!
Yeah.
It
Ninety-five
doesn't
percent.
Some
mean
of it.
it doesn't mean that they don't prevent disease. This is
Okay.
what vaccines are supposed to do. Volcano and Moses. Vaccines are supposed to prevent disease. If you got the disease, vaccines are supposed to prevent hospitalization for you not to go to the severe form and for you not to die.
Okay.
Those are the three things vaccines are supposed to do.
Okay.
Vaccines are supposed to, number one, prevent disease so that you don't get the disease. And this is why 99.9% of people that took out of those vaccines that we just spoke about are protected as compared to those that did not take the vaccines.
Okay.
Cases that are happening right now, for example, in the United States, in the UK, in Israel, from the data that we are looking at and reading on a daily basis, people who have the vaccines are not coming as much down with the COVID-19 virus. There are breakthrough cases. Breakthrough meaning you took the vaccines, but then you got the case. Those people, unless your immune system is compromised or you have some pre-existing conditions, that people with sickle cell anemia and people with heart disease, you are old in the age of 80 where your immune system is compromised, then whether or not you take the vaccines, you are at higher rates of dying. So one vaccine is supposed to prevent disease, which all of these vaccines are doing. Number two, vaccines are supposed to minimize hospitalization when you get the disease, not to be hospitalized and get severely ill.
Mhm.
And number three, vaccines are supposed to minimize the deaths when you take the vaccine. I even got sick and went to a hospital. You understand what this is what the vaccine is supposed to do.
Okay.
And this
Moses,
is
can you
what the
read that question
vaccines
for him?
are doing
Can you see the question?
effectively now.
All
Okay.
right.
So there's a question here that says, if you took a Pfizer, could you take another product for the booster?
I would advise that if you have, unless under circumstances where you cannot find the site of where you took your vaccines and they say it's not available,
Mm-hmm.
then you consult with your, primary healthcare physician to tell you the risks and all of that. But if it is possible for you to continue with your Pfizer with your booster dose, I will encourage that you do that. That's what I did.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
Moses.
yeah. So Toba, let's look at some of the myths about COVID. And I would like to begin by asking, recovering from COVID, does that in any way provide immunity?
Yes, to some extent, you get
Okay.
immunity to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
So what percentage of immunity you get, protected you get from getting COVID, and how long it lasts is still being researched, whether it's 6 months, whether it's 1 year. Studies are still going on to know the level of protection you get and for how long. But this is what we recommend. The recommendation is that whether or not you got COVID, please get your vaccines. You are getting double, double protection by being infected with COVID and survive, and also getting your vaccination going.
Getting the COVID vaccine can infect with COVID. How do you explain that? There are people who say that.
That's not correct. That's myth.
Okay.
The COVID-19 vaccines that are being produced
Mm-hmm.
are made to prevent you from getting the COVID. It teaches the body how to recognize the virus. but not to give you the virus. So you take the vaccine and you get infected with the virus. The vaccines will recognize that your body have taken in a strange, we call it has taken in a strange entity, and the body will recognize that because you have the vaccines in your body. The vaccines will move strictly to where the virus is supposed to replicate and attack the virus for you not to come down with the disease. That's what
Okay.
a vaccine does. And so by having the vaccines will not give you the COVID because you know the virus have been reduced in the preparation of the vaccines and the body is fixed to recognize the virus.
Continue, Moses.
So
Yeah.
it's a myth.
Antiretroviral treatment for HIV, the medication which is used to treat HIV. There are people who say that getting such treatment is effective against COVID-19. Is that true?
There are, if not billions of doses of antiretroviral drugs across the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
HIV has been around since the 1980s. Specifically, some countries diagnosed HIV 82, some 86. And, in the 90s, antiretroviral drugs came about. So it's all over the world. If it were proven that ARVs can stop COVID-19, but now we'll be treating ourselves with ARVs. So that's not correct. By treating yourself with antiretroviral drugs cannot stop COVID.
Okay.
All right, let me come in quick, Moses,
Sure.
before you come back to some of the
Yeah, go
myths.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's drive this thing now home to Liberia. Tolbert, you've been in Liberia, you worked there, you know the complications when it comes to stuff like this. How our people are non-compliant. The other day, the Ministry of Health released, new mandate on all travelers coming from South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Es- Eswatini, Mozambique, and Lesotho. Those were the countries banned by the U.S., right? And they said that when those folks come to Liberia, they will be quarantined for 7 days, transported and quarantined for 7 days at a place called Star Base, but they would pay $40 per night. We've traveled in and out of our country, and we understand the peak of corruption at the end posts of entries. How prudent would the Liberian man be to his own health, to his own country? How patriotic that would be, um, to really stand firm. Because I've heard cases, man, as a journalist, and these are people who talking. You get there, you get paid your money, and you keep going. You don't even get tested or anything. You tell me,
Double.
would you think we're able to sustain this?
So thank you. That's a great one. That one is what everyone is grappling with right now, globally. And Liberia knew would never move from behind me because even when I get contacted by the BBC, by the time they end their story, they will say from Liberia. So
Mhm.
it's great you're asking about what's happening in our country. I do follow some of these things happening, though very, very busy. So I'm not paying that much attention to what's happening and going on there. There are other people who are in charge right now that are leading the show and all of that. But overall, travel bans, I don't, they are not effective. So I can clearly tell you. And
And do you think that's globally, from your perspective? You
whether
think
it's
people are going to
globally,
slide in here in the U.S. like that?
whether it's globally, whether it's in Liberia, whether it's United States,
Okay.
they are, when countries put travel ban, they are only buying time to say, look, certain things are not in place, let's put them in place and get ready. By the time South Africa diagnosed the Omicron variant in just a week, it appears in the United States, appears in Israel, with all the noise they were causing with travel ban.
Mhm.
Moses was giving the statistics about how many countries, yourself were giving how many
Yeah.
states in the United States of the 50 states are being affected right now, a number of people
Yeah.
that have it. But the Omicron variant is not a dominant variant right now. The predominant variant is still the Delta variant that we're dealing with. So for countries like Liberia is like following suit what the other people did. U.S. put travel ban, other
I
people
see that.
travel ban. So let's follow them and do what the other people. And most of the countries that doing that, that's the reason they're doing that.
And so that there's new money coming, global funding coming, they can say, you see, we put our system in place, so we want some of that money,
Uh,
like you said, follow suit. I
So
mean,
you, you, you can't punish a country for doing a great job. South Africa did a great job for their laboratory system to do the sequencing and immediately found out that look, we were having the Delta variant here, but we noticed that people appearing the virus is completely looking different from what we are seeing now, and you can detect that in a lab. The structure, of how the virus look and how it affect people, the clinical signs and symptoms and all of that. You can do what we call genomic sequencing, and you will know whether you're dealing with new virus or the same virus that you were dealing with. We did similar things in Liberia when we were dealing with the Ebola virus disease. We knew that we were dealing with the Zaire Ebola strain, that was in Liberia that we were dealing with. That's the most virulent strain. But how, Volcano, you leave the US today, right? You arrive at RIA. This virus, the incubation period is 2 to 14 days, meaning if you got infected today, someone came out of your house or you went in the street or a market somewhere, and you got infected with a virus, it may take maybe 5 days before you start showing signs, symptoms like fever, running nose, and all the other things that we know about.
okay.
You appear RIA, you got a virus. They check you to the airport. You still in your incubation period. You went home. 3 days into Liberia, you got the virus. Now, the only way the people at the airport could catch you, and sometimes when a virus low is low, you may not be detected at all by any test. So this is where we put premium on effective testing, effective contact tracing, effective case finding, effective isolation, watching your hand, wearing your mask. These are the things, getting your vaccines. These are the things that are effective that will stop this. So by putting travel ban on South Africa, but you didn't put travel ban on Kenya, and people flying from South Africa into Kenya or into Ethiopia or into other countries in the region, and then fly from Nairobi into the US because Nairobi is now on the list. How effective is your travel ban? So if Liberia names some countries that you come from this place and come from this place, did they put the US there? Because the US have the Omicron variant right now. UK has it. Israel has it. You will be just banning people. Strengthen your airport system. Your port of entry should be strong. People should not pass through there if they have signs and symptoms. Isolate them. Follow them for the number of days. And don't make money out of those things. Like just come in when you pay, you pass. Be very, very strong on that. When I was leading the Ebola outbreak, I sent the names of people who were contact, though with confidentiality in mind. We had a strong team at the airport. If you were contact or contact of somebody who was sick, you can't get on the airplane because you could manifest a sign and symptom. That's how we minimize people leaving Liberia and coming to the rest of the world that made Ebola did not become a pandemic. We were able to stop that in West Africa. Those are some of the strategies that are effective.
Yeah,
Quickly,
but
Moses, before you come in, let me just
mhm.
tell you,
Yeah.
call
Okay.
us. You can begin calling now. We're going to post a number. Again, we have Tolbert Nyenswah. We're discussing the coronavirus, some of the myths around it, the things we're talking about here. It's very educating, and we got a little more to go. So we want to continue to keep going with the conversation, but we're posting the line. Go ahead, Moses.
Yeah, Tava, you struck a very salient point regarding enforcement of the laws regarding who travels and who doesn't, what the protocol is at a port of entry, especially the Rabas International Airport. What we have been reading about Liberia is that the protocol we have, the health protocol we have at the airport, is to a greater extent compromised. The fixation has always been and continue to be on the $75. You pay the $75, people are less concerned about whether you are positive or not. They let you go. And when you are about to leave, you pay the $75. It's just about making the money. As a professional in this business, does this really bother you about what is happening to your country?
Few months ago, yes, we wrote a policy paper. Sarah Beslow Yanti, who's now the special representative to the Secretary General, she's now being appointed, I think, in South Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
She's leaving Nepal now and has been appointed to South Sudan. Beslow Nyanti, myself, Dr. Madia Stone, Dr. Dubé Chris Nyang, we wrote a policy paper between June and July when Liberia was at a peak, when the system was very, very loose and people were dying. We didn't feel very good as Liberians. And so we came up and wrote a policy paper and advanced those to the government and people who were in leadership what to do and all of that. And I feel that today they have fixed some of those issues. They're doing rapid testing right now at the port of entry. They put in some strong measures and strong people from the Public Health Institute to go in there and fix some of the problem. Some of the things you used to hear about people not getting their test results have been minimized right now because of the system that they have put in place. Have been following up to know what's going on. Right now, I understand people are getting their test results on arrival, and when they are departing, they're using rapid antigen testing and all of that. And there are some public health officials that we've worked with in the past that we put in place in that are now working with the leadership. So I think it's getting better. They should continue to make it more effective because it's not about only the money, but it's about protecting lives and saving lives of people. If
Thank
you,
you.
if you
We have
let
a caller.
Sure.
Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here in a
Oh,
second.
okay. You're on live. Where you calling from? What's your name?
My name is Paul Foka,
Okay.
and to my brother Nyenswah, rescue operation.
care for the dying,
And yeah, okay. Thank you, brother. My concern has to do with this maxing in Liberia. We've been observing that, like, we say, even our own church we go to, they are not wearing the mask. So I want to know what your advice because, like, Liberia now we see, I think they say we're doing good. So what would be your advice and based on your experience as it relates to the new variant to our country, Liberia specific?
Thank you. Thank you. So she's talking about wearing mask, and you know that one of the big things. I must say, I can be a victim sometimes. I'm not too big on the, on the mask wearing. I just feel I'm immune. you know. Go
now,
ahead.
yes, my respond to that and rescue the perishing. Thank you for the concern and the question. Uh, Before vaccines were developed at the origin of this outbreak, and there will be several other diseases that will be cause outbreak in the world. Not this will not be the last, even if we stop this one. Before, if a new disease comes, I just want to give you a background. People will be struggling to find the vaccines and drugs. It takes time. So, depending on the disease you're dealing with, the public health measures that you take are very, very important. Hand washing, wearing a mask in the case of COVID 19, because it's a respiratory disease. So, wearing a mask and all of those things can help. People are saying that Liberia is doing right now. No country is out of the woods yet. No country, no single country. People may be telling you Liberia is doing well, people in Africa are doing well. The disease may be underground, people dying, they might not be diagnosed in it well. Other people may be surviving because at least 60 to 70% are get the virus. They may stay home and don't even show signs and symptoms, asymptomatic people. So you don't know who you're coming across. Going to the churches, unless the World Health Organization can declare that COVID-19 is over in the world, every human being should be vigilant and take precautions. So my advice would be, please wear your mask. It's important. Keep washing your hands, sanitizing your hands, you know, social distancing can be difficult in our part of the world because people have to go to the market, people crowded up in churches, in schools, and all of that. But if you have the opportunity to wear mask, please do that.
And the one that is so unavoidable is the transportation. Can you imagine somebody
Exactly.
sitting on your lap, the body in a car for a long ride,
Yeah.
Crowded buses from Red Light, from School Factory, from Freeport, moving into Monrovia from
Mhm.
Johnson Street. You know, so you have to take precaution,
Yeah,
and
and
Yeah,
you
Moses.
have to keep testing people. Important.
yeah, and toward, one thing, there are people in Liberia who believe that the problem of COVID in the country is negligible, meaning that Liberia is out of the woods. Liberia has made significant progress, so people are literally, celebrating, paying little or no attention to the protocol. Uh, you work with Enfield before you have a good understanding of Liberia's commitment to fighting COVID, to fighting other diseases. Uh, how would you describe the Liberian government's commitment in standing up against COVID-19?
Now, for anybody to tell you that you know COVID-19 is negligible in Liberia, they playing fun, my brother. No disease that killed more than 100 people in the population at a very short time. If I check the numbers, even more than 200 people died from the disease in Liberia, and about 5,000 plus cases that were reported. And the economic, the work that the government is supposed to be doing, everyone is focusing on COVID. If it were negligible, people would be going out their normal business and not be concerned. But it has brought the government to its needs economically and social, politically, and all of that. So this is where, when we were in the position that we were in at the as somebody in the health authority, we were talking to folks in government that look, when we the Ebola crisis, where it did to Liberia GDP was even moving to double digit, Moses, when Ebola struck. And we saw the negative impact of Ebola carried the GDP below 1%, that destroyed our economy. Up to today, it has not recovered because of the situation. So what we were telling folks is that, look, you have to pay attention to health. You have to pay attention to health because one disease outbreak caused the kind of calamity we saw. And it didn't even take long when we were pushing those things, going to the legislature and telling them to support the health budget, Enfield budget, and all of that, and was doing that. People were overlooking that. It didn't even take long when COVID struck, and we seeing what's going on right now in the country. So it's very, very important to pay attention to healthcare, to pay attention to education, water and sanitation, those social determinants of health, housing, and all of that. And it's not about building rules and building the massive hospital buildings and markets and all that kind of stuff. The social aspect, social determinants of those situations are very important. The human development, very critical.
Let me ask you this question quick, and it has to do with Ebola. After the cessation of that first major Ebola outbreak, recently, I believe it probably a year or so, there was another outbreak we heard that manifested in Guinea, I believe, and in fact, they were nervous that someone had crossed into Liberia. I believe I was in Liberia at that time visiting. Whatever happened to that story? And do you ever think that the Ebola could ever come back in Africa and rage the devil again like it's done in 2014 and those years that you were in the forefront? In fact, you were named one of the Ebola heroes of Liberia. Do you see that coming again? So let's
Ebola,
let's talk about that reason because it just died. It disappeared. I didn't hear much about it.
Ebola will still come back. It could happen uh, any part of Africa. It could happen in Liberia again. And for sure, yes, that can happen. The reason is, and let me give you the reason that that could happen.
Okay.
Uh, a disease that has reservoir in animals, like the coronaviruses that we're dealing with right now, like Ebola, like Lassa fever. Lassa fever are in rodents and rats. Ebola, you can find it in bats, and and we're talking about coronavirus were discovered in Wuhan, China, and all of those things. Any disease that have reservoir in animals will always find its way in human beings. That's what we call the One Health concept. If you're dealing with human, animal, and environment. So we have not eradicated Ebola from animals yet. So Ebola could struck in animals. That number one. Number two, the other reason why that could happen again is Ebola can survive in human being when you caught it before.
Mm.
Ebola can stay in the cement up to 150 days to 200 days. Before it was 90 days, but we done research in Liberia that found out that up to 150 to 200 days, somebody can have Ebola in a cement that could reignite an Ebola outbreak. Those are the two major sources of an outbreak of Ebola could occur. And this is why the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a few months ago, were dealing with 11 Ebola outbreaks since 1976, because that's the origin of the Ebola crisis from 1976 from the Ebola River in the DRC. Now, the one that happened, and the good news now is we have more tools in the toolbox than we had before. We didn't have vaccines when we were dealing with the West Africa Ebola crisis between Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Today, we have vaccines that are efficacious that you can deploy and immediately contain an outbreak. Number two, the experience that we have had from the 2014-2016 outbreak, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and the West African region has the best tools and people that are trained now to deal with Ebola as compared to other countries. This is why Volcano, what you just said about Guinea, they had those cases, but then immediately they were able to put the measures that we put in place. They'll stay testing. They got a lab to test for Ebola. They got contact tracers that can follow the cases. They have isolation centers now. When we started in 2014, we had zero knowledge of how those things can happen while our people died. We used to take samples weeks, if not months, across the border to go to France before we can test the disease. But after Ebola, we built systems. We built a National Public Health Institute. We train people. We train epidemiologists to deal with those diseases. So, in a nutshell, your question was, will we have it again? Yes, it's possible we could have it. Will it be as devastating as it was during the 2014, 2016? I doubt it, unless that country does not need help. Or, and trust me, systems don't run themselves, people run systems.
There you go.
So if you let your guards down, the disease may spread. And people also have to adhere to the measures.
Let me bring this caller in, then Moses, you're coming. Caller,
Sure.
are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Welcome. Your name and where you calling from?
Okay. My name is Cassius Massa. I'm calling from Louisville, Kentucky.
Good evening. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. The first, let's say thank you to my former boss, Mr. Nyenswah. This is Cassius from the Ministry of Health from the Procurement Department. I'm sure
Oh,
you can remember
Cassius.
me by now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a little bit interested in how they call it the boost viral
You mean a
vaccine,
booster?
right?
A booster.
Mhm.
Yeah, the booster, right?
Okay.
And for the past 2 weeks now, I've been acting as the acting supervisor from the job that I work at the Ministry of Health. I mean, say Ministry of Health or the post office because the guy who was the supervisor over me, he came down with a virus and he left. And so they decided that I should be acting in his position, which of course I'm not too happy, but happy too. Right now I'm acting as a supervisor. But my question is that I did the first vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
How can I go about to be able to get to apply for how they call it the boost, right?
The
I want
booster.
to do it. So yeah, booster. How can I do it? Do I have to go and apply for it, or is this when I did a vaccine? You have to call me and tell me, say, hey, you have to come back to do another for the booster.
So
That is
let
my
me
question.
quickly understand you before Mr. Nyenswah comes in. Have you done the
Um,
two shots?
You have to do the
yeah,
two shot.
Okay, so
I
you
did
did the
two
two
shot.
shots and you need a booster. But I easy
Right.
problem. Let the expert tell you.
So what you need to do is that number one, we need to check whether or not you have had it in the last 6 months, your last dose. You need to check your vaccine card, whether since you took your second dose of whatsoever vaccines you took, whether it has passed 6 months. That's number one. Number two, you have to go on a website, whether it's a CVS you had it in or a Rite Aid or Walgreens. Go on the website and make an appointment. When you make an appointment, they will give you an appointment to where you took it, and you just walk in and go for the vaccines. Again, it's also different from state to state, but generally, on the overall, this is the process.
But I would be surprised that the post office, as a government entity, would not be, setting this stuff up for the employees. I'm just thinking out loud because
Uh,
my employer, they made sure that they put all the mechanisms in place, and that's why we all came together on November 30th, and a lot of people, took the vaccine. River says Pro is on the line. Let me bring him in quick. River says Pro, welcome.
Yeah, how you doing, Volcano? How you doing?
We good, man.
Welcome,
You've been
Roses.
missing, my man. What you went to
Yeah,
River
I know,
says?
man. Yeah, I know. Them people, yeah, man. It's not, yeah, every
but,
time I come, they're
but
almost
but
done.
my man,
Eh?
you say you can't work 40 hours. So you want 70 hours, you gotta
You
work.
know, I'm supposed to catch the schedule, but you know, sometimes some of the job
I
they
know.
need it done.
I
So yeah, I
know.
don't come
Yeah,
It's
on,
okay.
but
It's
yeah,
okay, my man.
sure.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you see, though, that's why I like this forum. You know, the topics are always important and important. I mean, great guests and yeah, I mean, I listen to portion of it, but my question has to do with uh, I mean, in Africa, I noticed that Africa has the lowest. That's why I want to ask
The
the guy from
expert.
the
The expert.
the expert the expert Africa has one of the lowest death rates. I mean, as far as the COVID is concerned. So what would the expert kind of like credit? I mean, attributes. So is it because of the climatic condition or the hot weather, or because I mean I noticed that Bill Gates, everybody gave those warnings. We all were afraid, and I'm not trying to say that it will not come. There will not be like a huge. I mean, hopefully it doesn't. But we have alarm from all over the World Health Organization. They think when it comes in Africa, it will be deadly. But I mean, so far so good. I mean, even though we have death, I mean, no death is good. Every death is unfortunate, but at least Africa is faring well. So what will he? I mean, what are the contributing factor of the lowest or the low death rate due to COVID in Africa?
Thank you.
That's my
Thank you.
question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the myths too. So let's hear from you, Tober. Thank you.
as thank you, as compared to thank you, caller. That's a great one. As compared to other regions, like the region of the Americas, United States, South the America, Europe, and Asia, and some of those. Yeah, Africa is seems to be, and let me qualify that, seems to be fewer cases and also fewer deaths when you compare to people dying. If you check, I think about disease that kill almost 300,000 people, my brother, is not a small thing though. So there are a lot of deaths that happen in Africa. But to go directly to your question, that could be number one, attributable to underreporting too. A lot of people die in communities. Here, the sophistication, the detection, the people here can detect the disease with very, very precision, and they have the facility to do that. And accurate reporting, so their numbers will be up there. So data system is an impediment to some of our health systems in Africa. So people may be going affected from the disease but are not tested and not reported. That's one of the issues. Underreporting could be number one. Number
And
two,
also misdiagnosis, right?
Mhm.
exactly. And then miss people. I was speaking to one senior UN guy in Liberia, and I won't mention his name. He said sometimes the drivers and cook will come around here and tell him that, look, what you call coronavirus that you're thinking about it, chief. When we get this thing, we just go to our leg by a or get our leg pepper soup. This thing can go away quick. So I'm not going
It's
no
just-
hospital for
yeah.
anything called coronavirus. So we take those things and come on. Underreporting is an issue. And another thing is that we used to these infectious diseases in our population. Just imagine how many malaria episodes you have had when you were a child.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
You know, how many malaria episodes that you've had? How many episodes of diarrhea? How many episodes of, cholera, of those diseases that we deal with back home? In the developed world, people are used to non-communicable diseases like heart disease, like hypertension. These are the things they worry about. So if you have an infectious disease like coronavirus in this population, again, another factor is aging. The people here are way up there, immunity reduction. We have young age population in Liberia and other places, and in Africa. Our population is still under the bulk of the population is still below 52, 50 years old. Here, people are way up there, 70s, 80s. So when an outbreak like they affect them, more people die as compared to in our region. I hope I was able to answer your question.
So
Moses,
yeah.
just to the last question because it's 8:28. We have to
Uh,
go.
okay. So on top of before you we go, healthcare is very costly. In Liberia, we're talking about fighting COVID. What have you been able to find out in terms of budgetary allocation to uh, 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 fighting or healthcare in Liberia? What did the Liberian government commit to that?
So, in terms of and the budget discussion is going on right now. I think it's a topical issue on all every Liberian on the 2022 fiscal year budget. I think the budget starts from January to December now. It's not like we had it and in June and something like that. And I'm a bit disappointed on what is being allocated to health. Let me give you the reason I'm disappointed because I believe in stats. I'm someone who loves to follow statistics and not just say things because to be a lawyer and to be a scientist, you should be empirical. Both fields, people's lives are involved. Now, in April of, if I can be precise, April 27, 2001. I was only 2 years joining the Ministry of Health as a cadet. From 1999, I joined the Ministry of Health as a cadet. And, the now vice president was First Lady of Liberia, Her Excellency Joy Howard Taylor. And I remember African leaders met in Abuja, Nigeria in 2001. And she represented her husband, Mr. Taylor, former President Taylor, and signed on behalf of Liberia the pledge, the Abuja Declaration that was signed. African leaders pledged them. And it's about 2 decades since that pledge was made in 2001. And Moses, that's the time I used to see you come in the Ministry of Health. Yeah, when you were following Ambassador
Wait,
Julie
yeah,
Andy,
Julian, yeah, so
I would
reporter.
see you eradication.
Yeah,
That way I got to be seeing you, though we didn't know each other then.
yeah,
So the African leaders pledged that 15%, 15% of members' countries' budget will go towards the health sector. 15%. And since then, Liberia has been making steady progress. If I look at the stats from the 2010, 2011 budget, Liberia has been making steady progress on allocating at least 15% of the budget. Though we have not reached 15%, the highest we reached was 14.59% in the 2017, 2016, 2016, 2017, even 2018, 2019 budget when some of our in the health sector, because we advocated for that. Sadly, in this budget, allocation to health is only 10.59% of the national cake that is being distributed today. Check the numbers. The $785.6 million budget that is being argued right now before the legislature, only 83 million is going to the health sector. When the budget is increasing, there where we're taking our percentage down to meet the Abuja declaration that Liberia signed years back. So when we should be going above and getting the 15%, this is where some of the indicators and the benchmark Liberia have been missing. And the MCC is one of them. The money you put into health is one of the indicators.
yeah.
So this 15% was meant to build healthcare system, fight diseases like we're seeing right now. But if you're making only 10% of the budget to go to health, when it used to be almost 14% and the percentage is descending, then Liberia is in a serious, serious trouble.
Absolutely.
Mr. Nyenswah, we want to thank you so much. I thought this was a great conversation. We have to respect time, respect your time, respect the audience time, respect the platform, broadcast time, 1.5 hour. We can come back again. I think,
Obviously.
these kinds of conversations don't end in an hour and 30 minutes. There's so much more to discuss. Just talking about the budget, newer questions came to mind, but I can't ask it. So I want to thank you this evening for availing yourself on behalf of the Issues Room. I think a lot of people did learn, and hopefully doing those replays will learn something. But it was good having you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Quickly, Tolbert, it was very informative and educative. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Moses, we just got to respect time because that's the essence of professionalism. But
Definitely.
again, it was great conversation. I thought that we covered grounds.
It
We
was.
looked at the COVID, the variants. We talked about some of the factors that's leading to where we are. We brought it back home to Liberia, and we kind of threw in a little bit of the Ebola, just to create some kind of understanding, because there's a tendency for people to think, okay, no more Ebola and it will never come back. But it was good that some of these questions were asked. Not that we hope that it ever comes back to Liberia, but again, he said that it's in animals.
Yeah.
They are more like a reservoir carrying these things. But it was good. Hopefully, we can bring Mr. Nyenswah back to further discuss, because the Omicron is here. Who knows what would be the next variant?
That's true. Thank you.
All right, so guys out there, all of our avid viewers and listeners, Prince Moivi Jacobs just got in. Unfortunately, we're wrapping up now. Thomas Awaji, River says Pro had to just come in, and then we say thank you, Emmanuel Zoga, Cole Gloria Voka Moba. Good evening, Oliver Duplay. It was good having you in the house. Jake Mazo Payson. Just wonderful people, man. Emmanuel Jackson, Steve Quare, Tonia Brooks, Leboy, Tengbe, all you folks who say thank you for being there. On Tuesday, we'll be back here with another presentation. We invite you, we encourage you to share our link, share our page, and let us continue to discuss these things. We are the alternative, and so we bring you the kinds of conversations needed, especially that will blow your minds away and give you an insight. It's not all about politics and yelling about who's going to be president and who's doing what. We need to have these kinds of conversations. And next week, once we put our pieces together, Tuesday is going to be one of those conversations. You want to come here and join us? I'm telling you, Moses, that would be a good one, a real good
Yeah.
human interest conversation. So thank you all, and I'll say good night, Moses.
Yeah, good night,
My name is
Volcano.
Volcano Shelton.
It
Thank
was a
you all.
pleasure being here with you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mhm.